Hamlet, thanks again for joining us. Now,
Ever done a tail drop, guys?
If I were to ask you about the first skate video ever, you'd probably think of something like this. This is The Search for Animal Chin, a 1987 Pal Peralta video made by Stacy Peralta. This is probably the most iconic early skate video and arguably the most influential. In it, the Bones Brigade team travel around California, Nevada, and Hawaii, skating different spots in search of a wise old man, Wonton Animal Chin. It's all very goofy and pubescent, but the satires on mainstream media, the look, style, and many of the conventions established in this video are still used in skate videos today. You could make the argument that it is the greatest skate video of all time, but it is not the first.
Tony was doing Jelly Mambo, sex change varial, and kickflip ollies.
No,
Yeah.
you're messed up.
Technically, Google will tell you this was the first skate video ever made. In 1984, Peralta and the Bones Brigade team made the Bones Brigade video show. It had a very similar goofy and episodic feel as Animal Chin, but a looser narrative, which was pretty much just Lance Mountain riding around town discovering new spots and people. Some people feel like the first real skate videos only came along at the time when camcorders became affordable for the average consumer. A lot of skateboarders will tell you that the early H Street videos by Tony Magnuson and Mike Ternasky, such as Shackle Me Not in 1988, as well as Hokus Pokus in 1989, were the first real skate videos. These were more amateurish productions with less focus on gimmicks and more focus on just documenting skateboarding tricks that would progress the language of the sport and also blow people's minds.
hey, what do you think about skateboarding?
Well, I think it's a little dangerous. I wouldn't try it.
All right.
But you look like you're having fun, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, we are.
Bye. Bye.
Others will remember that Santa Cruz had a few videos at the same time, such as Wheels of Fire in 1987 and Streets on Fire in 1989, both by Scott Dittrich. These ones are actually pretty legit skate videos, and they were shot on 16mm film, which must have been expensive at the time, but makes them rare relics and really beautiful to watch. These videos were also super influential, featuring a young Nada Skopas doing the original Nada spin in Streets on Fire. Outside of skate videos, many people will remember David Winters' Thrashin from 1986 as the first skateboarding movie. Highly influential and full of cheese, it's basically like a West Side Story, but with skateboarding. It's the Daggers, or the Sharks, versus the Locals, or the Jets, and then a guy from one gang falls in love with a girl from the other. There's a lot of cool and weird stuff about this one that make it such a unique skate genre film. The skating was inspired by and consulted on by Tony Alva. The opening song, Thrashin', was recorded by Meatloaf on commission for the film, but was never officially released on any format. Johnny Depp auditioned for the role of Tommy Hook. Steve Caballero was the stunt double for Radley. Chris Cook, Lance Mountain, and Alan Losey were stunt doubles for Josh Brolin, and there were cameos by Tony Hawk, Christian Hosoi, Rodney Mullen, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. If not Thrashin', it's often 1989's Gleaming the Cube by Graham Clifford that gets mentioned in this conversation. This movie is awesome. It features a young skateboarding Christian Slater who uncovers a conspiracy involving government agents and Vietnamese gangsters. A lot of people die in this movie. It's actually pretty dark. At times, it feels kind of like a skateboarding Footloose. For example, this scene where Brian goes to the factory to blow off some steam is so reminiscent of the infamous Footloose warehouse dance scene. Even though the script is clunky, this movie is a great thematic representation of skateboarding. There's a lot of emphasis on the importance of individuality, and it's very endearing how inclusive some of the dialogue is towards Vietnamese people. This movie had a $10 million budget, which resulted in Tommy Guerrero making $500 a day to teach Christian Slater how to skate. The box office gross was only around $3 million, so it may not be considered very successful by Hollywood standards, but I think this film definitely earns its title as the first and probably the greatest skateboarding blockbuster. Mike McGill and Rodney Mullen were actually Slater's stunt doubles, and Stacy Peralta worked as a second unit director, shooting all the skate scenes for the film, which makes a lot of sense when you look at sequences like this. Peralta's way of shooting skating is very calculated, often using multiple takes and sequences, which don't always line up perfectly with continuity if you look too close. And then this kind of sequence, this shot, react, shot sequence, is a total trademark Stacy Peralta approach. You can see it here in the Bones Brigade video show back in 1984. Tony Hawk and Tommy Guerrero are recurring characters in Gleaming the Cube, which add to the feeling that this is like a Hollywood Bones Brigade movie. Mike McGill actually got hit by a motorcycle in this scene, and he ended up being hospitalized. This crazy freeway skating and under-truck transfer was done by Mark Rogowski. Unfortunately, I think most people today haven't even heard of this movie. The first appearance of skateboarding on film for most people was Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future in 1985.
That thing he's on.
It's a board with wheels.
It's an absolute dream.
While you could argue this cameo was more influential than everything else on this list, it does not predate the Bones Brigade video show, and neither could be called the first appearance of skateboarding on film. All the way back in 1978, there was a British TV show called The World About Us, produced by Horace Ove, which in an episode called Skateboarding Kings attempted to profile the Southern California skate scene in a 59-minute documentary. It has a real outsider approach, like a nature documentary made by 1970s adults looking at children through an anthropological lens. Like all the films on this list, it's an amazing cultural gem worth a watch. Some of the best moments are these slice-of-life pieces in between the editorials. This introduction is pretty hilarious, but don't let it fool you. What follows after this is a very unique and uncommon approach to documenting skate culture.
You're young, male, and live in the city. How do you prove yourself in the most materially comfortable country on earth? How do you show courage, daring, skill, strength? How do you prove you're a man? If you're a Maasai tribesman in Africa, you kill a lion. If you're an Aborigine boy, you go on walkabout. If you live in Dogtown, Los Angeles, you ride a skateboard.
Also in 1978, there was a movie called Skateboard by George Gage, and this is honestly a pretty weird movie. I think this one actually would have been pretty great if the main character wasn't so hateable. The plot follows an irresponsible and sleazy guy who decides to start a skateboarding team in an attempt to make money to pay off his gambling debts. It's kind of surreal to think of this Neanderthal parading skateboarders around as a circus act, and weird to see in the 70s so many people interested in skateboarding that have no business being interested in skateboarding. I mean, it's pretty strange for a middle-aged man that's never skateboarded and who has no children to start a skateboarding team for under 18 youth. He has some pretty sus behavior with the kids overall and is not respectable, which makes the whole thing a bit harder to enjoy. This one was also consulted on by Tony Alva, but the perspective of the film as a whole feels very much like its main character, coming from outside of the culture in order to exploit it. There's a weird Alfred Hitchcock connection with this film, which is not important, but one of the skaters' moms is played by Patricia Hitchcock, the famous film director's daughter, who also acted in Psycho and Strangers on a Train. Doesn't mean much, but this series is all about discussing the merits of skateboarding videos while looking at them through the lens of filmmaking and making comparisons to the history of cinema. So if I see an opportunity to connect Hitchcock to skate videos, I'm gonna take it. Up until recently, I thought that was pretty much it for the origin story of the skate video. A few cheesy 80s B-movies and a few early videos which satirized the Hollywood B-movie with montages of skateboarding. I was going to talk about how far we've come, how much the skate video has developed as a genre, and how it's influenced some real quality filmmaking in recent years. But then I discovered this next film, which totally upended my idea of a linear progression. All the way back in 1965, Noel Black wrote and directed Skaterdater. This is an American short film which won the Palme d'Or for Best Short at the 1966 Cannes Film Festival. It was also nominated for an Academy Award in the Best Short Feature Subject category, and then won first prizes in Moscow and Venice International Film Festivals. The film tells a story with no dialogue. The cinematography is beautiful, and although this predates so much of the culture that has defined skate video conventions, you see the same things. The same kind of shots, the same essence of style, the same punk rock attitude. Really, you've just gotta watch this film. The surf rock soundtrack is incredible, composed by Mike Curb and Nick Venet with a song by David Allen and the Arrows. It was distributed theatrically, both domestically and internationally by United Artists. It was reviewed extensively by media outlets including Time magazine. It's had lasting cultural relevance in the film industry, has been the subject of scholarly articles on cinematography, and in 2010, the Academy Film Archive preserved the film, meaning the original film materials are stored in frozen temperatures to extend its useful life, because people really cherish this film. I fucking love this movie, and I found it incredible to realize that one of the best short films about skateboarding that I've ever seen was also the first. which I think is a better legacy than a linear progression anyways. In the 80s, skateboarding videos and films represented the culture in a gimmicky way, which created stereotypes that I think some people actually now resent. Personally, I love all these films, but I'm a lot more proud to know that skate videos actually started a lot earlier, with a well-crafted and well-rounded quality film. Everyone should go watch Skaterdater.